Good morning. I worked on this background. I'm not sure if you saw it in my past live. All I did was take some fall colors, some yellow ochre, some raw sienna, raw umber, a tad of green just for the heck of it right through there, and just made a fall colored background just up and down with the paintbrush. The whole process was probably 2 minutes. Well, probably 5 because I was talking, but I thought I would come on this morning and do before work because I had this on my mind, and let's do a quick pumpkin scene. So I'm going to use my brush. I'm using my wet palette, and I still have, it's just full of fall colors. And I misted it down overnight even though it's a wet palette, so my paint's actually pretty thin this morning. But I'm going to decide where I want the pumpkin, which is going to be pretty close to here in the middle. We're going to put a few grasses and a couple of blooms over here and a couple of flowers over here. So we'll go right through the center with our pumpkin. Let's just say, do it, let's just do it. And I'm just sort of lightly sketching it on here. Remember, it's kind of rounded there at the bottom. Kind of goes in a tad here at the top. You know, and there's no biggie with pumpkins, especially when you're doing something that has palette knives and things in it. You in your toolbox, you can have elongated pumpkins, round pumpkins. It's all cool. I wish mine was a little rounder, but I'm going to stick with this. Okay, then usually your stem comes down in there a tad. Let's just sort of sketch that out. And have our stem come up and around. They're usually kind of fat and stubby. They can also come on down and have a cute twirly tail, and I'm going to do that on mine just to give it some pizzazz here. And so we'll narrow that as we go. And just sort of sketch that in. Then our flowers. This is awfully dark to be sketching that in with, but that's okay because this is acrylic paint. It can cover it up. We're going to have a couple of little flowers coming out of our grass up here. You know, I really love the mums that come out in the fall time of the year, and they have some beautiful colors and some fuchsias and some golds and 2 or 3 other colors. It's not always just the yellow daisies that we think about first often. I don't want it to be all about the flowers, so I'm not going to put a whole lot in there. You always want to stay with an odd number, so we're going to go with 3 over there. And then we're going to go with a little bit bigger ones over here to take up a little bit more room. And most of this brown, even though it goes in good with the fall colors, most of this will be covered up later. But it's good to get a little bit of an indication of where you want things. We're going to go ahead and put the top one right here. Darken those centers a little bit. A lot of people don't do their whole background first because it's going to be a little bit more work here in a minute to do the pumpkin, because I'm going to be doing a light colored pumpkin. But doing the backgrounds is relaxing to me, and it brings me a little bit of inspiration to get going. You know how on the top of the pumpkin this is sort of cray there. I'm going to go ahead and darken in my stem a little bit while I'm up here. just as whenever you do trees or anything else, you start out wider and then you get more narrow as you go down toward the end. We're going to go ahead and mark our areas of the pumpkin where the ridges would be. And they'll sort of curve a little bit to the left on that side, and then they actually, to get the shape, will curve a little bit around to the right on this side. There's a little bit of one there, and you actually, let's come around just a tad, because you would actually still be able to see a little bit of the back of that pumpkin. There we go. Okay. I'm just using brushes that I had out here from last night, so I don't even really know what I have out here. I'm going to go with another round brush. This one's a little bit bigger. These are Dynasty brushes. Looks like this is a number 18. And I'm just going, just not stressing over this, but I'm going to go with a little bit of my grasses now, and I have some phthalo green. Wasn't my favorite of the greens, but that was the darkest of the greens I had this morning. So I'm going to go with a little bit of the stems here out of that. Of course, the stem is a lot, well, I guess it's not going to matter. I was going to say a lot thinner on the smaller ones. And I'm going to go ahead with this and do, you know, they have sort of a, just a tall, straight little leaf coming off here and there on these type of flowers. So I'm going to get a little bit of that in the dark color. You know, there's so many people that fall is their favorite time of the year. And honestly, hope that doesn't happen to me, because summer's always been my favorite time of the year. I am a summer lover. Okay, now I'm just going to go with some random streaks of this, especially more at the bottom, because this will be a little bit darker than our sap green that I'll be using in a minute. But I want a little bit more of a depth of color down here at the bottom, in the little sort of field where my pumpkin is still sitting. Things are always deeper, but where they're denser, the colors are always a little darker. And that gives you your depth. I'm going to put just a tad of green toward the end of my stem here, because it would be a little more green in some of the area. A little bit of that into my brown. Okay. Rinse that out. And I'm going to go ahead and put, what am I going to put? I'm going to go ahead and put, you know what, I'm going to use gesso. Let me see if I've got some sitting here that's white. I hope that's clear. Hold on a second. Here's some. This will cover up that, if I can get it open, this will cover up that, yay me, that orange that's already on the pumpkin a little bit better, and it dries pretty quick. So let's grab this on here and sort of fill in our pumpkin a little bit with the gesso. We're not aiming so much for perfection here as helping to cover the majority of the darker parts here. I'm picking up a little bit of that green as I hit the bottom, but that's okay too. That's the most important thing about enjoying what you're doing, is not stressing over it. And I don't know about you, but I'm someone who stresses over everything all the time. That's why painting is so good for me. It's that moment in time where I just let it go, let her rip, and enjoy the process. With this style, more of a loose style, where we're going to use the palette knife for some of it and the loose brush strokes with some of it, there's not near as much pressure for trying to make things look nice. And I'm just sort of leaving even the orange color beside the brown, because that's where it would be normally a little darker, in the recesses of the ridges of the pumpkin. You know, I don't know if it's more of a northern thing than a southern thing, because I'm sure there's, you know, we have a pumpkin patch thing that sets up in our area every year for people to take pictures at and buy pumpkins that they carve out for jack-o'-lanterns and things like that for Halloween. But I've seen recipes for things like pumpkin soup, and I've never known anyone who ate the pumpkin in my whole life. I've never known anyone who ate pumpkin for anything. They sell pumpkin seeds at the store. I've never tasted one. My husband, who's from West Virginia, had tasted the, you know, likes them, and they're actually very good for your health, for men, for their prostate gland. Actually, it's a very healthy seed. But I've never known anyone who ate the actual pumpkin, and it seems like such a waste. I'm gonna just sort of get a little bit of this white in here just for some highlighting purposes, because I got it on my brush and there's no sense in wasting it. Definitely more on the outer edges and areas where the sun would be hitting than in the areas that I just made dark. Okay, let's let that dry a tad. Each of these is smaller. This one's smaller. I'm going to grab this one back and get some of the sap green, and let's go ahead and get a little bit more of our greenery in. I love this sap green. Love it, love it, love it. This particular one was my mother's. She passed away in 2005, and some of her paints are still good, and I still use them. This is one, but I'm almost out of it, so I just ordered my own sap green. I ordered that from Blick Art Supply, and I do have a link for that over on our Facebook page, at Art by Terry Stovall. And I would appreciate it if you do decide to go there and pick out some paints if you use my link, because that helps me out and helps me to keep my tutorials free, and that's always a bonus. It helps me buy more art supplies. I don't have my glasses on. This light's shining right in my eyes, so hopefully this isn't too crazy looking. But I can't see with my glasses on to do what I'm doing here. Well, I can't see with them or without them. That's part of it. Trying to go with just a few loose, thinner strokes here up. I could probably get a thinner brush, but it's more important to me to finish quickly this morning. I'm going to grab a little bit of white to go in there with this and get these tips with it. A little bit of highlighting in there. try to go along the right hand side of these stems a little bit. And on the left hand side of them over here. I think there would probably be a little bit of dead grass in there too, so let's just, I think this is yellow ochre here. It may be raw sienna, but I believe it is yellow ochre. Put a little bit of that in. Sort of get just a little bit of the brightness out of there. I think I like that better. Go a little heavier down here toward the bottom. This is mixing up to give us a little bit of a browny green here, which is awesome. Okay, good enough. Let's get that out. Oh, look, there's a little bit of dried something on that bristle. Okay, now we're going to go over the pumpkin real quick. I got out some unbleached titanium, which is just sort of a tanny color white. That's the main color that our pumpkin's going to be today. Let's see if that gesso's dry. Yeah, let's go ahead and get this first coat on. Oh, I was going to do that with a palette knife. Let me just get up here real close with this, then I'll come back with the palette knife. For the detailed areas that it's easy for me to go in and try to get a point or a little angle at and things like that, it's easier for me to use the brush than the palette knife. I'm not as experienced with the palette knife, and I'm trying to learn, but I'm also trying to make it to work on time this morning. There's a glob on there. Let me get it off. I don't want to be wasteful. Okay. Wish me luck. I'm going with this one right here. Again, that's part of the bonus of going with a painting using a palette knife, is that things are not supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to sort of, this is supposed to resemble a sort of a shabby chic pumpkin. So that's what I'm going for. I follow Amanda Hilburn in her palette knife painting classes. She's with the Little Bluebird Gallery. So if you're wanting to check out someone who's more experienced than me so that you can do a better job from the beginning, then that would be where to go. But if you want to learn right alongside me, I appreciate you being here. It doesn't matter if a little of that white shows through. Some of this paint was left in here from yesterday, and it's very thin, and some of it I put in this morning, and it's a bit thicker. Amanda makes it look so simple. And I'm a pretty fast learner, but I don't have it yet. Just don't have it perfected. But you know what? She's got a few years on me as far as palette knife painting experience goes. I'm going over some of the brown lines and some of the other stuff a little bit, and that's okay too, because we'll come back in with a little more of those details in a minute. We don't want perfect stripes through there. That's not going to give us the look that we're going for. We're picking up a tad of the burnt sienna that's beside this that thinned out overnight, and I kind of like that little bit of streak going through there, so I'm not making a big deal out of that at all. Trying not to pick up too much of the green, but you know, sometimes on the bottom of a pumpkin you do see a little bit of a green. This bottom on here. Turn my canvas a little bit to make this easier to get to, and boy does that make life easier. I don't know why, but from what I understand, fall is the time of the year that really gets people wanting to decorate their home, to put out fall decor and make things beautiful. The time of the year that sparked for me is spring, whenever I can go and find new plants and things for my porch and do my outside sprucing up. And that's the time of the year, I guess, when you do spring cleaning and things like that, that makes me want new curtains and new throw pillows and all that kind of stuff, new paintings for the house. But all in all, nationwide, the big decorating season starts with fall, and then we move into, I guess, prepping ourselves for the holidays. So we move into Thanksgiving and then into Christmas, and or whatever holidays that you know that you celebrate through that time of the year. People seem to really love to decorate their homes for that, and they start thinking about fall before summer's even over. Today is, I don't know what, August 8th, I think. And school starts back next week here. They've been out for the summer, and it's already time for school to start back. And when I was a kid, and when my kids were in school, we didn't start back to school in the fall until after Labor, or well, the week of Labor Day. We started back. I always thought it was kind of silly by the time my kids started school. They would start back the couple of days before Labor Day, like on the Thursday before Labor Day's Monday, and they would start back on that Thursday and then be off again on the following Monday, and then start school, you know, be prepared, and I guess paying more attention in classes, and everybody have all their supplies and everything ready after Labor Day. And we used to get out in May, at the end of May, but now it's, you know, June before they get out, and they start back at the 1st of August. It just blows me away. if you're going to do summertime family vacations and things like that, you really have to be on the ball as soon as the kids get out of school for summer, because you're going to be out of summer before you know it. You barely have time to enjoy summer and pay for your summer vacation before it's time to buy. Here they wear uniforms at a lot of the schools, so it's time to buy uniforms and school supplies, and school supplies are hundreds of dollars per student. I don't know why. It used to be you could go and get a pack of pencils, a couple of composition books, and a couple of notebooks, or some loose leaf paper, and you were good to go. But now, hundreds of dollars per child, or every teacher has to have special markers and special dry erase markers and special pens and mechanical pencils and just the craziest list of expensive supplies that I can't imagine elementary age students needing. But I guess back then maybe they didn't go through as much, and the teachers bought, you know, the red pens if they did papers, and those markers and all that came from the schools, and maybe they don't have that anymore. I don't know why. And man, they sure go through a lot of Kleenex, and it worries me that they go through all those like Clorox wipes. I don't allow bleach in my home because it's a dangerous chemical. But the schools won't accept the natural wipes made with essential oils and peroxide and other things that work equally well for disinfecting. But I guess they're, you know, also paranoid about the flu coming through the schools and things like that, that they want the bleach. But if you researched all that stuff, the more of that they have to have that antibacterial gel, whatever that stuff's called, too. And that stuff, the more you use it, the less antibiotics are helpful for you later on. So having all that stuff going on in the school systems now and being a requirement is actually going to make a whole new generation of antibiotic resistant people, which is kind of sad. But when you know better, you do better. I didn't always know either. That's for sure. Or at least it wasn't my day job before. Okay, I'm going to dab just a tad down in this darker color just to try to get the bottom of my pumpkin a little darker. Where it's sitting there on bottom. Come in with a little more of the brown that we started with in the beginning, which is burnt umber, and try to straighten out my lines here a little bit. There's still a little bit of the sienna on there too. Going a little darker up here at the top. May as well go ahead and spread a little love on that. I'm picking up a little bit of that red by accident, but I'm going to go ahead and get it on here. That fuchsia. Sorry about that. I got a telephone call. let me try this maybe with a different palette knife, because I'm not being as successful at moving fast as I want to be. Moving fast is very important to me, so maybe because this paint is so thick. Let me get a little bit of water, bring that in. If not, I'm going to go back to my brush. Oh yeah, that's a little bit better. That's not working for me. I'm in too big of a hurry to fiddle fart with that right now. So I'm getting a tiny little brush and grabbing some of this brown paint off of here. And I'm just going to try to go willy-nilly with it instead of all straight. And the other paint underneath it is so wet that it's not working how I want it to. But we'll put that in there anyway to get our depth of color started or maintained there. I believe adaptability is extremely important, so trying to be adaptable here in my painting this morning. I'm going to work on these flowers for a second, and this is going to brighten things up way more than I'm interested in brightening things up, but that's, we'll come back and tone it down. This thinned out a good bit too, but I love the, I wanted to add a little bit of color to this, and this is magenta, so let's put a little magenta in here. This is also thinner than I'm accustomed to because of putting, used my little misting bottle. This is my old Jane Iredale one that I use, so whichever misting bottle that you use. It looked like the paints were drying out too much, and so I put a good bit of that mist on top of it last night. I'm just being very loose with this, not trying to do perfect petals or anything. For one, nature is, in general, not perfect. But in this loose style of painting, it's important as well to just keep things flowing a bit. Looks so much better because of having the brown around it that already tones it down quite a bit. So that ended up being a good move. But I'm going to go in and put a little bit of the the burnt sienna just in coming off the centers just a tad, just to warm it up just a little bit. Because even though in nature these are very bright, in this particular painting, I want them to be muted a little bit. I'm going to put some of that toward the center too. Just dot around just a tad. Flowers are very, very seldom the same color all the way through. They often have a little bit of a deeper area closest to the center of the bloom. I'm a licensed florist, actually. Give you a little bit of trivia there. Had my florist license for 22 years. In the state of Louisiana, you have to be licensed to be a florist. You can't just go open a flower shop because you're good with flowers. You have to follow a big bunch of rules and know a whole bunch about plants and flower identification and things like that. And I'm thankful for that too as well. Let's see if we can deepen this up a little bit more. I'm trying to stay to the underside of, I'll stay on the back side of the stems, because remember I put the white on the other side of the stems earlier. I'll try to stay on the back side of the stems and leaves with the darker color. We're not going near as thick on this side as we did that side, but we do need it a little darker underneath our pumpkin here, because it would have browned some of those leaves in areas where it was sitting. I'm going to try to lightly scrub that up in there, and that don't look right. I'm going to do it anyways. There we go. Coming in and spreading in that darker from the bottom, going up a little bit here. Then I'm going to have to come back in with some green under my pumpkin. The paint from the palette knife is so wet that every time I'm touching it, it's just smearing. Oh, usually I have a blow dryer over here. I'm going to dry that just a tad. concentrating mostly on like the ridges of the pumpkin because I'm going to be coming through there to try to blend that a little bit, so I don't want it completely dry, but I don't want to just smear everything I've got going over with the cream color either, the unbleached titanium. Okay, let's try this again. Going to put I'm going to just try to work in these seams. I'm going with a yellow ochre. I'm not trying to be neat at all. I'm just trying to get a tad of this in each of these seams. Or not seams, but indentations of the pumpkin. Oh, that would not have been good. I almost knocked my wet palette off the side. Trying to get some of these perfect lines that I've got going here from my paintbrush out of here with the palette knife. I'll go a little bit darker with the raw sienna. Go with a little bit more of that in the flowers with the palette knife to give it a little bit of dimension. Use that as a highlight color on my stem a little bit. Back in, and this is really thickened up here, back into the darker brown, burnt umber. I'm just trying to fill in these crevices a little bit darker. I don't want to hide all of those other colors that I put in there, but I do want the little burnt umber line to show through. And give that final bit of detail there. the importance here is that I'm learning is that I'm holding my palette knife too tight and I'm pushing down too hard. Whenever you fill it up with paint, if you lightly touch it, then it'll put that line on there. But if you're gripping it really tight and pushing down into the paint, then it's not going to leave it the same mark. So I'm learning how to be a little more gentle with what I do. And that's not easy for me. That's what I thought I would like the most about, that was crooked, about palette knife painting is being able to be a little more heavy-handed. But in fact, that's the complete opposite of what works. It takes more patience than painting with a brush, for sure. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep practicing. Right now I want to give up. Right now I want to just go get my makeup on and get ready for work and get on with my day. But the lesson I'm supposed to learn from this painting hasn't been learned by me yet, has it? Because I'm still dabbing it on there heavy-handed. I'm trying to mimic those angles a little bit from the bottom to deepen that area a little bit. I'm going down a little bit heavier now because I'm fixing to go with one more coat of the unbleached titanium over this, and it's going to blend a little. I actually like that better already. I want just a tad of, what do I want? Just a tad of in there. That yellow is too bright. That's too dark. I'm going to go with this, just a tad. Of the burnt sienna. coming up from the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing coming down from the top. Being a lot looser and a lot less trying to do a good job, and it's coming out how I want it. So, lesson learned. Get a little bit of this. There's not much back in there. And I'm just trying to smear a little with this. Dark area too much. Let me go back in with that. Okay, I think I like that. Now I want to get a little bit of something else where I'm going to grab a little bit more of that unbleached titanium. Done with the pumpkin, but I'm not happy with the rest of the canvas, so I'm going to grab a little bit of this. See if I can be one-handed. Okay, getting a bunch of phone calls. I'm about as finished as I'm going to be. I'm going to touch up this just a tad, and then I'm going to get ready for work, but I do need to take that other phone call. Have a good day. I hope you enjoyed watching. Bye. Don't know how to turn it off, so are you sure you want to stop recording?